Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Star Entertainment Group just can't stay out of the headlines. Yesterday, Executive Chair David Foster announced his exit from the group. Last week, he fronted a second New South Wales inquiry into the Star, where he said that despite remediation efforts, the company was not in a fit state to hold a casino licence. The inquiry had already heard allegations of conflict between Star management and the regulator-appointed overseer, including text messages between then CEO Robbie Cook and Mr Foster, suggesting they were preparing for war. The group's share price is languishing at or near all-time lows. Compare that for a moment with Crown Resorts. Crown Sydney was last week deemed suitable to hold a casino licence, and the Crown Melbourne last month won the right to continue operating after the Victorian regulator found that company's systems failings were in the past. The outcomes of the two gaming giants couldn't be more different, despite having endured similar public inquiries in recent years, revealing money laundering, links to organised crimes and other major deficiencies. So, how has it gone so wrong for Star and so right for Crown? And where to from here? The industry is certainly facing plenty of headwinds, including cost pressures and lower foreign tourism, both of which contributed to Crown's announcement yesterday that it would be cutting up to 1,000 jobs. Peter Deans is a former Chief Risk Officer at Bank of Queensland and director and founder of Not Without Risk Consulting. He was also the independent expert advisor to the Victorian and Western Australian Royal Commissions into Crown Casino. So he knows the space better than most. Peter, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Thanks, Sean. Always good to be here, of course.
That was quite the introduction. Normally they're not that long. But, Peter, there is so much going on in this space. First, a bit of background. Many of the issues facing Crown and Star were quite similar, weren't they? The money laundering, organised crime, etc. So they kind of started at the same point, is that right?
Oh, look, I think the broader issue for casinos and gaming is that even up until recently, they were seen as being relatively heavily regulated businesses. And Crown in Sydney, for example, was given its original licence in 2014, and leading up to the opening or the planned opening of Barangaroo in 2019, there were concerns about Crown's suitability as a licence holder. And that really does go to the core of the issues with Crown, which pleasingly both Melbourne and Sydney have been given the tick for suitability. And a little bit later in the piece with the issues that have emerged with Star, it's really come about because of this question of suitability and whether or not it's money laundering, financial crime concerns or responsible gaming concerns or concerns around other aspects of the licences. And in the case of Crown, there were original concerns about a number of the shareholders. It's an industry that's always been under the spotlight. What I think we now see now is that the spotlight is it's in real time, and people get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of the goings on within these organisations. So
why is Crown so suitable and Star isn't so suitable? Is there an easy answer to that?
Oh, look, I think, and I probably should just say, in addition to my role advising the Victorian and the WA Royal Commissions, I did actually help Crown with some of the reform program in 2022 and 2023. But the reasons for suitability, again, in a very transparent world, have been published on both New South Wales and Victorian casino regulators' websites. And to Crown's credit, both regulators, and also in the case of Victoria, the special manager, said that Crown had done everything that had been asked of it and everything it had decided to do post the Finkelstein Royal Commission to effectively reform itself, remediate all the issues identified, and it got on and did that job both before the Blackstone ownership and post the Blackstone ownership. And it's a credit to the people involved that they just got on and did it. And I think as we've seen with Star in recent weeks, I think there probably hasn't been the change in culture and change in attitude, which a number of the people inside the tent at Star have acknowledged that's necessary to undertake what are very challenging programs.
Okay, so if we sit where we are now and Crown Resorts has kind of come through this process, at least in the regulator's eyes, in much better shape, but it has come at a cost. We heard yesterday that 1,000 jobs will go, mostly they will be in Melbourne. Part of the reason given was economics, cost of living, but the other part was stricter requirements. So obviously there is a cost to all of this, which both organisations presumably are feeling.
Yeah, I think, and look, I'm not close enough to Crown to know the specific ins and outs of what's caused the job cuts, other than what's been publicly announced. Clearly, the economy, today is not as good as it was. We've just come through COVID as well, and so, Crown had to employ quite a lot of people to get the programs of work done. I presume that they were gearing up again for more buoyant economic times, but higher interest rates here and overseas has obviously impacted. I think there's, again, just the broader economic climate means that all discretionary sectors are suffering, and gaming, whether it's casinos or totaliser betting, I'm sure is not immune.
Stay with me, Peter. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Peter Deans, a former Chief Risk Officer and founder of Not Without Risk Consulting, an independent expert advisor to the Victorian and WA Royal Commissions into Crown Casino. So let's bring it to Star. At this rate, it's very difficult to see where Star ends up. Whether it continues as a going concern is a real question. Whether it has an overseer for an extended period. Do you think there's actually a potential for it to lose its licence entirely?
Well, I think the process, as I understand it, is that the Bell inquiry will hand down its findings and recommendations to the New South Wales casino regulator and obviously New South Wales government, and it'll be a matter of what that recommendation is. I think the chair of Star was on the record last week, or the former chair, stating that at this point in time he couldn't disagree that they weren't fit to hold the licence. So it is hard to know what that means. I think, as I touched on before with your question about Crown, though, I think you need to demonstrate a change in the risk culture of an organisation, and I think that demonstrable willingness to get done what has to be done. I think a couple of Star executives, perhaps it was 2 weeks ago, provided some views on perhaps some of the challenges in actually getting things done. Was that the program they had was, I think, to quote one of the executives, ambitious, and there was also a desire to quickly achieve milestones. And I think any sort of reform or remediation program, whether it's the gaming sector or if we go back to the banking sector with the likes of Commonwealth Bank's work after its APRA prudential inquiry, these are not programs that get done in a month or two. They are multi-year programs. They take a very strong financial commitment, and they take a very strong, tone from the top and management commitment to do everything that's necessary. And it does seem like from the Star inquiry the last couple of weeks that that's not all hung together at all well.
Is it possible, and I'm not advocating for or against the Star, and I presume you're not advocating for or against the Star, but Nicholas Weeks, who was the regulator's overseer, is it possible that he overstepped the mark? And I don't even want to make it as personal as that. Crown said that they managed their regulator in a certain way. Star complained about their regulator being harder. I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but there's kind of more to it than just jumping in on Star here, because the cost of everything that's gone on must be very difficult to actually make a financial return for shareholders. Obviously, Crown is owned by a private equity group. They don't have to worry about that as much. The Star does.
Yeah, I think the Bell inquiry will provide you with those answers on whether or not individuals that overstep their mark. Again, I just think these are very, very difficult programs of work to do. And if you are, I think this has also come out, if you are somewhat financially constrained, as Star has been, given its debt levels, the fact it's publicly listed, the fact that the casino is not operating as profitably as it has in the past in Sydney, I think it all puts pressure on individuals and executives. And perhaps some of the more colourful aspects of the inquiry is seeing how people respond under extreme pressure, whether it's financial pressure or regulatory pressure. So, look, I think it's very hard to know. I think it's a matter of seeing what the Bell inquiry comes out with, because it does need to answer some of these questions.
So what's the moral of the story, Peter? You run Not Without Risk Consulting, so obviously you're an expert on risk and you've advised Royal Commissions. What is the moral of this for management, for CEOs? Not even just, I'm not only talking about the Star and Crown here, just generally.
Yeah, look, I think it's there's a lot that gets written about. There's no one single thing. There's no one silver bullet. It's a matter of, getting the right governance at a board level, getting the right sort of risk culture, getting the right risk frameworks in place. I think certainly aligning remuneration of executives to whatever the desired outcomes of the organisation are. All of them need to be working. You almost can't have one weak link in amongst all of that, because if you've got all the right incentives and the right frameworks and reporting, but the culture's not right, middle, lower down, or even at the top, it's very hard to make it all work. I think boards, and I know we've talked about this on the program before. I mean, the boards are on notice, particularly publicly listed entities, that shareholders and regulators and the community hold them to account when things go wrong. And so I think the downside risk, and I actually quite like to talk about losses avoided, and also licensed operate or social licensed operators, two of the very strong and compelling reasons to spend a little bit of time and money getting this right, to get the right level of risk resources, to get the right managers in across the whole business, because you can spend a few $1 million and it'll save you hundreds of millions of dollars in either regulatory fines, sanctions, legal fees, or in the case of publicly listed companies, catastrophic drops in market capitalisation, which is, I think, is your lead in. It's where we've seen with Star.
Peter, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Always good to be here. Thanks, Sean.
That was Peter Deans, a former Chief Risk Officer and founder of Not Without Risk Consulting and independent expert advisor to the Victorian and WA Royal Commissions into Crown Casino. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.